welcome to the Grown Up Group. Today we will be talking about something very important to me after coming from the finance discussion last week and the economy. I know we talked about some of the things that in the economy that we can do to kind of like strengthen our finances in the Black community. But today I want to talk about something that's really close and near and dear to my heart: the Black family and owning homes. So can the average Black family still afford a home? And then I want to delve into some of the segments of house prices, mortgage rates, and then the real question is, can you qualify for a mortgage? And then can you comfortably live with the mortgage? So let's delve into that, right? Let's get into some of these talking points. I know home prices have risen drastically or dramatically compared to what they were based on our household earnings and income. Mortgage rates can turn an affordable looking purchase price into an unaffordable monthly payment. So the real question is, can you qualify for that mortgage? And not only that, but can you comfortably live with the mortgage? I know buyers have to account for principal, interest, property tax, homeowner insurance, mortgage insurance. All of that stuff is calculated separately outside of a mortgage. We didn't even delve into utilities, maintenance of a home, HOA fees, and any repairs that the home may need. I need a refrigerator right now, badly. I'm going to be at the store like soon as Friday hit to just look at some fridges. And I'm just talking from a personal perspective because I've been a homeowner. I became a homeowner roughly in my mid 40s. If it was something that I told my kids to really, invest in, it is properties. I told them, not only have a property, a home for yourself, go buy that condo. You've been living here for however many years. Go and sit down and actually sit with yourself and your finances. Purchase a property for yourself. And then not only purchase for a property for yourself, but also invest in yourself. Get an investment property. Get a condo. It's 1 and 2 bedroom and rent that baby out. And trust me, being a homeowner will basically have its benefit because it'll pay for the mortgage itself if you do your numbers right. So let's delve into that because this is a great discussion. Is a bank definition of affordability the same as a family's definition of affordability? I'm going to tell you, immediately I hear that question, I'm like, no. Simply because the bank doesn't account for everything that we account for, like as our personal life, our wants and our needs. And we talked about that in our economic discussion. We have to look at what our wants and needs are, and mainly our needs over our wants. Because we go crazy with that. I'm like, I want to go to a concert and I'm going to go to that concert, but still, is it going to now mess up my finances on my month-to-month spending on my houses and food and everything that I need to afford in order to live? And that's one of the things that we do. We live outside of our means. So how do we gauge this and how do we make ourselves more accountable for it? So why is home ownership particularly difficult for Black families? The wealth gap. We spoke on it last week, and I know you guys know exactly what I'm talking about. This is for when, I can go to my parents or my lineage and say, hey, can you give me a $50,000 loan? And then that way they give it to me and I'm able to have like a come up, opposed to someone that's going outside to a bank or a financial institution and asking for a $50,000 loan that puts you further in debt. So if you don't have that lineage or family member that you can go to and ask for income or, help to get or obtain a home, where do you start? You have no choice but to go to the financial institutions and the banks. I know that's one of the things that we talked about and how to get generational wealth, but we know that won't come for years for now. Hopefully we build it for our children, and then our children that come will then mimic our behavior, but not a home will. So that's just the reality of it. So when it comes to generational wealth, that plays a big part. If my family can loan me $50,000, I have an advantage. If they can't, then I have a disadvantage. Home ownership isn't just about somewhere to live, though. And that's what we have to teach our kids. It's potentially housing, equity, inheritance, and wealth transfer. Because when it comes down to it, who is next in line to inherit my lineage? All of the things that I possessed and have gained throughout my lifeline, who will I pass that on to? I do have a will and everything, and I had a very difficult discussion and decision on making those, calls for the next thing when my chapter closes, who will inherit those things. But we have to keep those things important because they are generational wealth. And that's what we're trying to teach on to our children. So hopefully their children will have more by the time they make it to our age. And let's go into further this. This means difficulty entering the housing market today can affect the next generation. That means down payments isn't the only obstacle. Even if someone has the income to make the monthly payment, They may not have the 20, 30, 40, $50,000 sitting in the bank for down payment and closing costs. And that's really what it comes down to, because you have to have those things lined up in order to. I can't even begin to tell you. I cut every financial thing off for like 3 months in order for me to come up with my closing and my final closing costs, and my down payment, because I just was like, I need to be able to reach this number. And thank God for some family and friends. And I would say that because I did use I called the hotline, and I was like, who can, bank me or foot me blank dollars by the end of this week or whatever, and I could pay you back. And like, I had to line some things up. And thank God for those people, because they afforded me the opportunity to be able to. So it's even important to have great friends that could, back you and see your vision of what you want to do, and invest in you. Basically, that's what it was. It was an investment. But then you also have credit that plays a huge part of it. Are we teaching people how to build credit before they're ready to buy a home or build a home? And are we waiting until they are ready to buy? You want to build your credit beforehand. You want to make sure that you are building your credit way before you're ready to purchase a home. It's really important, because your credit score plays a part on how your down payment is, the percentage of your interest rate. All of it is really key. If you're in the 700-800 brackets and you have a down payment, and think about the cost of living today. If you go rent a home, in order to rent a property, you have to have, what does it say, 3 times the salary? It's like also like a deposit, first month rent, and then a month and a half security, or whatever the case may be. And let's say that property is $3,000. Immediately, you're $3,000, $1,500, which is $4,500, and another $3,000. That's $7,500 that you immediately have to come up. That sounds like half of a down payment to a property to me, depending on where you're looking to purchase. So like, think of the math of that. Like, it's crazy. All you have to do is sit back and wait for another month in order to come up with that final number. To be like, we can afford a down payment to a property. I know it sounds like a lot, but when you went to go to move, you never think about that. How much money you're putting down to invest in renting a property opposed to purchasing your own property. And when you do the math, you see it's not that far off. And I remember that's how I ended up purchasing my property. I went to go look for apartments. The apartments that I was seeing for a large family that I have today, 4 children and a husband and a wife at that time. It was roughly 6 bedrooms that I was looking for in New Jersey. And I was coming back with, rental prices being $4,000 and up. And then I said, if I could afford $8,000 of renting a property, I definitely could sit off for another month and come up with another $8,000 to just simply purchase and put a down payment and go into a property in a city and state that I want to actually live in. So that's options. And look at that. Look how quickly you could come to the reality of like what you really need and what you don't have to like compromise. You don't have to compromise. You can actually go and get what you want to obtain. And that's a really important piece for me. Not only that, the FHA math. And there's a lot of myths about the FHA. It's not free money. It's not. I know it sounds so good to be like, oh, it's free money. It's not free money. So the FHA is the Federal Housing Administration. It insures mortgages made by approved lenders. That insurance allows lenders to afford more of flexible financing. Think about that, because those opportunities wasn't afforded to us previously. And if I go into the history of FHA, we'll be here for all night. Like, just trust me. Like when I tell you. So FHA says eligible borrowers can potentially purchase with a 3.5 minimum down payment. And they have HUD programs to show this. So for example, a $300,000 home, 3.5 down payment would be $10,500. A $400,000 home, 3.5 down payment is $14,000. A $500,000 home, 3.5 interest rate, that's $17,500. But this is the most important point that we have. The down payment isn't necessarily the entire amount of cash needed to close. And that they don't tell you. You don't get to the day of closing and then they tell you, oh, we need 15 blah, 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 blah dollars. And you're like, wait, why? Like, it was so like deafening to hear the amount. And I was like, okay, that's why I had to call a friend. Cause I was like, I'm $1,002 short. Like, how did we get to this number of 15,000 blah, blah dollars? No one tells you. So you need closing costs. You need prepaid expenses. You need an inspection. You always want to get an inspection. Never go into a house and buy it as is without that inspection. You need appraisal. You need moving expenses and other costs. I purchased my home, I think, in August, and then we didn't move into the end of September because I was like, okay, moving costs. Didn't calculate that into the plan either. And I was like, oh, my dad got a moving truck. He'll be able to give me one of his box trucks. And then I called my dad and was like, I need a box truck. And he was like, not here, baby. Insurance doesn't allow it anymore. And I was like, damn it. I wish I could go back in the times where it was like that. And, you were able to just drive off with a box truck and be like, thank you. And, you had a free truck, free moving services. Because I would have put it on my, son's back and his friends and be like, here for a slice of pizza and some stuff. You guys go and load the truck and we call it a day. But no, those moving expenses, you also have to make sure that they're part of your plans financially as well. That's where state assistant programs become extremely, extremely important. And trust me, they have them. And I'm going to give them to you. Just hold on with me. Hold on for me. Yes. So let's talk about State of New York Mortgage Agency. And that's SONYMA. New York has one of the most interesting programs for any audience. So that is SONYMA DPAL, and that's New York's Down Payment Assistance Loan Program. And that basically provides 0% interest, no monthly payments, forgiveness after 10 years. Forgiveness after 10 years. Did you hear that? Forgiveness after 10 years. I want to echo it. Because it's up to 3% of the purchase price, capped at $15,000, subject to the program rules, and then it can be used towards down payment and closing costs. I'm going to make sure that I drop that website and that link so you guys get that and see exactly what it is that you have to do and what the qualifications are. SONYMA DPAL Plus 2026 is particularly worth speaking of, simply because it's eligible for low income New York City households that are below 60% of area median income and can potentially receive up to $30,000 towards down payments, closing costs, and certain mortgage insurance costs. The program was launched in July 2026, and funds are limited, first come, first serve. You know it. So it's important that you click that link and get on it and fill out that information if you do qualify for it. If New York City can put up $30,000 towards helping a qualified family become homeowners, how many families know that this money exists? And this is what it comes down to, because if I didn't, state this on this podcast, or people don't watch this podcast, you would never know that it was out there. And I'm going to make sure that I make this as a little clip and a reel so everybody knows, go and apply for these programs. That's just New York City, but I also got stuff in New Jersey. Trust me, I got stuff coming for New Jersey. If you live in New Jersey has one of the most valuable and worthy programs called First Generation Homebuyers Assistance. And that is NJHMFA. There's a lot of acronyms within this podcast. NJHMFA Down Payment Assistance Program. This qualifies for first-time home buyers. They can receive up to $15,000 towards down payments and closing costs. The assistance is structured as an interest-free, 5-year forgivable second loan with no monthly payments when paired with the eligible NJHMFA first mortgage. That's basically a New Jersey government program that basically speaks about it. So let's go into a little bit of that. So let's go further into it. The NJHMFA First Generation Home Buyers Program. What a mouthful. They can't give enough acronyms for these damn mortgage loan programs. It's crazy. So the qualified first generation buyers can receive an additional $7,000 that can bring a total assistance up to $17,000 through $22,000. You guys heard me. I want to get on a megaphone and scream this, because these programs, they're out there, they're available, but the government, because guess what happens if you don't use that funding? They go elsewhere and they get reallocated to the next program. And I don't know if it'll be for you or it's just for the government benefit, but you want to jump on these opportunities, because why not? They're there for us, and let's use them. Let's become homeowners. Let's purchase our properties. But depending on the county and the eligibility, that may vary. That's $17,000 through $22,000. The first generation program is designed for people whose parents and legal guardians don't have current ownership interest in residential real estate and subject to programs detailed requirements. So certain people who have been in New Jersey foster care program can also qualify under this program's definition. Very, very important for people that are foster care, that they can qualify for this program, get $17,000 to $22,000 with the $15,000 in addition to the $7,000. So you do the math on this. I know I'm talking a lot of numbers, But if you slow this down, because I know I talk fast and I talk a lot. So, but if you slow this down and you click on these links for these programs, you'll see what the qualifications are and how great they would be for someone that's going in with zero slate and they could purchase their own. Yeah, it's really important that we speak on that though, because the more we tell, I want to say I'm educated and I got to educate you, and then hopefully you educate the next person. I don't gatekeep, no gatekeeping over here. So please go research that NJHMFA First Generation Home Buyers Program. Please look into it. It's really important. And then make sure you also do your research depending on what city and state you want to buy it in. There may be other free programs out there. I don't just touch on New Jersey. So I'll ask this very important question. If your parents never owned a home, can government programs help break down that cycle? Absolutely. That's one of them. That's one of the programs that's helping you break down that cycle. So we have no excuses. We have to create our generational wealth. And why not start today? Why not start now? So that's a powerful decision that you make if you go into this and think about your generational wealth without suggesting that every black family qualifies simply because they're black. That's not the case. Look into the NJHMFA Home Buyers Program and what their qualifications are. And then I'm going to touch on PA because PA, near and dear to my heart, it's where I ended up moving. So they do also have free programs, and I wish I knew this at the time of me actually closing on my property, because I didn't, and I ended up using my own cash flow. I wish I would have known about this, but Pennsylvania has several programs through the Pennsylvania Housing Finance Agency Act. That's PHFA, and that's Pennsylvania Housing Finance Agency. Woo, what a mouthful. So KFIT, which is Keystone's Forgivable in 10 Years program, this one basically gives attention to qualified buyers can receive 5% of the lesser of the purchase price or appraised value towards down payment or closing costs. There's no stated maximum dollar amount with the KFIT program. What? There's no maximum dollar amount under the KFIT program. Did you hear that? No stated maximum dollar amount. I'm not saying go buy a mansion, because then your mortgage could be like ridiculous. Don't do that to yourself. You want to make sure that we're building that generational wealth that we were talking about and not putting ourselves in more financial strains. So that's what we want to make sure we don't do. So the assistance program is forgiven up to 10% per year over 10 years. Think about that. So KFIT can be paired with FHAs, financing through PFAs, and the Keystone Flex program. Basically, an example of this: if you qualify to purchase a property for $300,000, the 5% interest would be $15,000. And if $400,000, 5% would be $20,000. And if $500,000, that 5% would be $25,000. And of course, it's subject to what eligibility to program limits and things like that. You have to read the fine print. I would always say apply. The worst they can do is say no, and then that way you could circle back and see if you could reapply for a lesser amount. But if you want to go for a property that's reasonable to build that generational wealth, why not start and work your way up? Yeah, that's a great start. I get so excited telling you guys about these programs and stuff. I'm like, this stuff is right at our fingertips, but I don't know if people just don't research or know. I didn't know until I researched. So I'm telling you, like, get on your Google, get clacking on the computer. You just never know what's out there. So the Keystone Advantage, another Pennsylvania option, provides up to $6,000 or 4% of your purchase price market value, whichever it is less, towards down payment and closing costs. It is a 0% interest second mortgage. But unlike KFIT, it is repaid over 10 years. So you have to pay this one back in over 10 years. Where KFIT, they have a forgivable over 10 years. So think about that, 10% every 10 throughout the 10 years for the KFIT program. So that's the difference between the one. For the KFIT, you have to, that's like forgivable. And then for the Keystone Advantage, that's a not forgivable. You have to pay that back within the next 10 years, over the next 10 years. So that's the difference between, but check the link. You'll make sure to check the link and just look at it. So just as a quick snapshot over the programs that I mentioned, for New York, the SOMYMA DPAL is up to $15,000. Yes, it's forgivable over 10 years. And then through SOMYMA, the mortgage programs can be connected to FHA. So keep that in mind. They're compatible with FHA. The other New York program that I referenced is the SONYMA DPAL Plus 2026. That's up to $30,000. It's program specific and it's through SONYMA that you would have an FHA compatibility. I know I'm talking a lot of languages to you, but hopefully we'll be able to click on the links and kind of get the definition of each program and if you qualify for that program. And I'm just going to let you know, it all sounds like it's really worth it to me. I might click some button after I'm done with this just to see, like, you know, what the qualifications are and what it looks like, because I never used it, but I wish I had these things available to my fingertips so that way I'd be able to be like, yes, it was worth it. Then for the New Jersey, you have New Jersey, well, NJ, HMFA, DPA, and that lends up to $15,000. And yes, it's forgivable for 5 years. And then is it compatible with FHA? Yes, it is. And then you also have New Jersey, first generation, NJ, HMFA, DPA, first generation program. And that includes an additional $7,000, including the $15,000 that you would qualify, but you could definitely do the first generation on the top of the other one. And then that way you could get up to $22,000 collectively. And yes, it is also forgivable up to 5 years. And then you have, yes, it's compatible with FHA. And then it also has NJHM FA mortgage that is compatible with. So you have to qualify for one and you can kind of group them together with the programs. That's pretty much what it's telling you that it says it's FHA compatible with. So that's great to know. And then for PA, you have the KFIT, KFIT. And then that's basically 5% of your purchase appraised value that it would give you. And it's a forgivable. Yes, it is forgivable for 10 years. And then it's compatible with FHA, and it's something that's also compatible with Keystone, which is the second program through PA, Keystone Advantage, and that's up to $6,000 in addition. It's not forgivable, but it's 0% loan. You don't have any interest rates on that. So that's great. You have to just simply pay off the $6,000 if that's what you are, applying for. And yeah, it's also compatible with FHA compatibility. So those are great things to know. There's always program rules, funding availability, income limits, as well as purchase price limits, as well as credit requirements and lender requirements that's applied. Always ask the question. Always ask, how do you build your credit? How do you know? What credit score do I have to be at? Look into this research before you apply, because you want to know all the details. That's why I said I'm gonna put the links down so you could just simply click on them. I'll probably put them in my comments too, just so people can actually see and click on the button and be able to get to what the information they're looking for relatively quickly. And then I want to also say, free money. Is it really free? Is it really free? These programs, is it really free? So don't call every program that we reference here free money. Instead, we want to word it as some programs provide assistance that may be forgiven if you meet the requirements and remain in the home during that required period. So some programs provide assistance that may be forgiven if you meet the requirements and remain in the home for the required period of time. So I'll give you an example of that, because we don't want to say just free money. It's just a false narrative. For NJH MFA DPA program, they're forgivable after the applicable 5-year period if requirements are met. And then they have a guidelines through New Jersey government that you have to follow and meet those guidelines. If you don't meet those guidelines, then unfortunately those 5 years you have to probably pay back. The SONYMA DPAL generally forgiven over 10 years, but certain circumstances can trigger repayment. You want to follow the home and community renewal program, and that's going to give you the guidelines of what that qualification is for that. And then for the PAK Fit, forgivable 10% annually over 10 years, they have guidelines through PHFA as well. I'm going to tell you, I've qualified for that PHFA program, and it was crazy. I applied maybe about 2 years ago, and I was like, wow, this is phenomenal, because I was able to get some benefits from that program. They don't just offer for mortgage, they offer for things like such as like appliances and things like that. So it's really important that you just go on and see what these programs offer you, because hey, you never know what you can get for these things. that much more accurate. They're like basically telling you that the government will give you $20,000 for the house. But you always have to read the fine print and that asterisk. The asterisk at the bottom with that fine print, read into those because those will be the key points that you need to know in order to be successful in getting your program and making sure that you're qualified to repay it back or not pay it back, or is it forgiven? So the next thing I want to go into is the 300,000 home test. Bear with me when I tell you this. So this is something that you have to ask yourself. Could an average family buy a $300,000 house? Could they? So the purchase price is $300,000. The FHA requires 3.5%. We talked about that earlier. That will total $10,500. Then you want to ask yourself, where does the $10,500 come from? The possible source may include the savings, gifts from family, eligible assistance, grants, secondary financing, and other permanent resources. So HUD specifically notes that applicable sources can include certain gifts, second mortgages, and down payment assistance programs. Basically, that's where you can get your funding from. Meaning, if I call a friend and I said, hey, could you give me $5,000 and you cash app that to me with the notation of gift, that I can use towards my down payment to the property of my home. Yes, a gift. You can use a gift. Think about all that grandma money that you used to get in cars that was $5 if you actually saved it. That's crazy. That would be gift money. Any eligible assistance, that's any of the programs that I outlined above. Yeah, you could, that qualifies the assistance to pay your mortgage. Secondary finance, I take a loan on this house and I go purchase another home. Yes, that qualifies for a down payment for a home. That $10,500, I can pull it out of any of those references, savings, gifts from a family, eligible assistance, grants, secondary financing, and other permanent sources. So yeah, it's really important that you know that. And we're going to circle back to these things because these are topics that I don't want to just have with you today. I'll delve into those as I have other financial conversations and discussions because we need to know. We really need to know. The question nobody wants to ask, are we buying too much house? I know I bought too much house. I bought way too much house. My kids are adults. So I know I talk about that a lot. My kids are adults. They range from the age of 21 through 27. So I have a 6-bedroom house. Do I need all 4 children? None of them, all 4 children live with me at this point. So 2 of them have moved out, so I'm left with 2. That leaves 2 bedrooms that's fairly empty. And I'm like, they need something to be done with them. I'm like, so one of the rooms I am using as an office. That's why I didn't say 3 rooms are not being used, because the 6-bedroom home, think about it, it's myself, my daughter that's 21, my son's 27, and my other 3 rooms would technically be available. 1 I am using for an office, so that leaves me with 2. So I can downsize at this point. I can actually use this, you get a second loan or mortgage, go purchase and downsize on a property and then use this as an investment property or vice versa. I know that those are some of the options that I have, but yeah, this is pretty much what I'm delving into. Like, you guys, are we buying too much house? I wish I would have asked myself that question. In 2 to 3 years, are my kids going to move out and then leave me with those empty rooms, and then I'll have to figure out what to do to fill those empty rooms? I wish I asked myself that question. I did. So let me get back to the story. A family may technically qualify for a $450,000 mortgage. I qualify for $450,000. But should you take that? Think about that. $450,000 is a lot of house. So then you want to ask yourself, would you rather own a $350,000 house and be comfortable, or struggle every month to maintain a $450,000 house? This goes a lot into what we have as far as our spending. What do we have as far as emergency savings? What about the repairs that may come in the future? What about job loss? I lost my job after being in the home for 1.5 years, and then I had to struggle and figure out how to make ends meet. And that's when I went and qualified for the PHFA loan. Thank God it was there for me and available for me, because it did help cover the cost while I was unemployed for that, 2 to 3 months. And then interest rates. What does the interest rates look like? What about property taxes? What about insurance as it increases? What about childcare or additional expenses, transportation, grocery and food, retirement savings, all of that stuff? My 401k plan eats it up like nom, nom, nom. So yeah, they're eating that way in my salary too. But all of that is equally important. In order to get approved for a home, you want to just not be house poor. You want to make sure that you're living in affordable means and you're able to maintain all those additional things that I mentioned: emergency savings, repairs, home, job loss. You never know. Just have that in the back of your mind. Interest rates, property taxes, insurance increases, as well as childcare, transportation, and retirement savings. Yes, all of that is equally important. Not to just what can you do to afford a property, not that $450,000 mortgage. Yeah, that's a lot. But could you live comfortably with that, or do you need to downsize that mortgage and qualify for something lesser, purchase a lesser home, and then that way you would be able to like not struggle from month to month to make the mortgage and all those other things fit within your budget. And then you also have to ask yourself, should Black families consider alternative home ownership strategies? What does that mean? Buying a smaller home first, which I wish I did. I wish I bought a smaller home. I wish I bought a 2-bedroom condo, and then that way wait for my dream home and then do the build up to it. Because when you're going into paying simply something like a rent, I think about back when my rent was like $1,800, and now I look at my expenses and I'm like, I pay a water bill, electric bill, I pay for the garbage, I pay for the sewage, I pay for the taxes, I pay for my mortgage. Like all of those bills, that's 6 bills compared to what I used to pay before, which was just rent. That's crazy, right? I never thanked my landlords enough or thought of my landlords enough to be like, oh, they're only charging me $2,000, but they have all these additional expenses. And, hey, I mean, it's their financial, things they have to deal with. But when you become a homeowner, you start to look at that. Something else is an alternative strategy of home ownership. Maybe buying a duplex. One half you live in, the other half you rent out. Or for, family unit. You live in one unit and then you rent out the other 3 units. That way the mortgage helps pay for itself. FHA insured mortgage can be used for eligible for 1 to 4 unit properties, including a HUD. And I'll give you HUD guidelines too, because I think that's equally important. Home ownership is still home ownership, regardless if it's a duplex, a smaller home, a mansion. I don't care what you have to do. Make sure you're living within your means, and it's equally important. Instead of asking yourself, should you buy this massive, mansion, ask yourself, could buying a duplex allow a family to live in a 1 unit and generate rental income from the others? Yes, by all means. I applaud that. I applaud that because it's looking at it from a bigger strategy. It can help pay for itself. You don't have to go and think about it. You lose your job, you still have income coming in. You'll be able to cover a portion of the mortgage. Even if you're paying a small piece, you don't have to pay the entire thing because you have those investment properties that's adding to, what your mortgage should be. That might actually be my next journey. That wouldn't be bad. But that's really what it comes down. There are obviously qualifications and property and occupancy and landlord responsibilities to consider that if you want to delve into it. But it's a strategy that's worth sitting down and discussing with a family or your loved one, seeing if that's a better option versus just, purchasing a home and eating all and absorbing all the costs. So buying outside the hottest market as well as another alternative strategy to home ownership. Does home ownership require living in the most expensive zip code? I say that about New York because New York has a lot of properties in areas that are just upcoming. You know that right now, if you go into certain territories and being gentrified, the mortgage loans are going to be a little bit more money. Not a little bit more. They're going to be a lot more money. And then if you live in Upper East Side in certain areas, it's closest to Central Parks and a lot of tourist areas. Stay away from 42nd and any of those surrounding areas. It's going to be increased. So you want to make sure that you're looking not in the hottest markets, but you're looking in the areas that are, more affordable. You don't want to go to those most expensive. Your mortgage rate as well as the interest is going to be through the roof, unless there's something to absorb those costs. I know a lot of different things that I live in PA. I have Mount Airy Lodge, which is a resort. It's supposed to absorb some of our taxes. I don't see it, but okay, that's what they tell us. But I'm like, oh, open the casinos up. Give us some of that tax money, pay towards my taxes or whatever. But they say that. They say that they help, afford taxes, not only Mount Airy Lodge, but other the resorts that are around our area. So I wouldn't just put it on Mount Airy Lodge. Let me not do that. But there's other places like the casinos as well as the resorts that's surrounding us, Camelback, Kalahari, Great Wolf, all of those take away from our tax dollars as well. So when you guys go getting those champagne glasses, you're helping me pay for my taxes. Thank you. Thank you so much. So home ownership versus rent. And I touched on it slightly, but this is where the debate really starts. So when we look at rent, this is some of the advantage if you're renting. You have lower upfront costs. I talked about, the down payment, a month and a half. It's kind of half of what you have to pay from putting in for a loan or a down payment to a house. You have less maintenance responsibilities. my hot water breaks, my hot water heater breaks, you as a landlord, you call the landlord. You say, hey, my hot water, I'm not getting hot water. And then it's up to the landlord to hire the plumber, whoever he needs, mechanical person to go in and fix those repairs, and makes it flexibility. So much flexibility around renting. Is this a month to month, a yearly lease? I don't have to commit to anything. And then there's no large down payment. And that's what I started with. The down payment, huge difference in if it's a large down payment versus a slow down payment, a small down payment. The disadvantages, there's no home equity. You don't get any interest from whatever pays for your rent. The rent can also be increased, which, state rules and regulations. Some cities and states are more strict on, increasing rents and things like that. And then there's no ownership stake, meaning that you leave, you come with nothing, you have nothing when you leave. Pretty much there's no home ownership stake. And then there's the B side. So let's get to the B side. The A side was basically talking about the rent. And now the B side of things, the advantage is equity, potential appreciation of your property, because you make improvements, you get interest, and you get appreciation to your property. You get housing stability, meaning no one's going to come out and move me out tomorrow. I know it's mine. Potential wealth transfer. I can take this property, move it on to my next, generation or lineage. And then there's potential tax benefits depending on the individual circumstances, which is really, really good. I talked about some of those tax benefits with my neighbors of, the resorts and all those other places. And then some of the disadvantages, I touched on it. That down payment, that large upfront cost. And then how about maintenance? I need maintenance on my property. I got to cut the grass every month. I got to make sure that the leaves are raked up. I got to make sure that anything that I invest in my property is safe and within the restrictions and guidelines of PA state rules and laws. And that is what it is. Snow clearing. Oh my God, you could ski down my driveway every winter. I swear to God, you could ski down my driveway. It's on a slope, so yeah, that I wish I went on flat land, but I live and I learned. And then you also have in property taxes. We have insurance. We have mortgage interest rates. We have less flexibility, because if I want to get up and move to Arizona tomorrow, I still have to worry about what's going to happen with my house. Now, thank God I have children in my home still, so I could be like, I'm out to Arizona, which I actually got a job up in Arizona. And it's one of the reasons why I didn't proceed with it, because I still had this house. And I was like, my kids are still young. I can't put a property on them, something that I committed to, and they had no real stake in it. My son was at that point like, I'm going back to the city. This is whack. And I was like, no, you'll find a job here. You'll love it. You'll love it. Eventually, you'll love it. And eventually he grew on him, and he did find a job here that was worthy of it, his time and interest. And we'll know if that ever changes in the future. But I didn't want to tie my kids to a house that I had just purchased and I wasn't in 5 years yet, but it's coming up on the 5 years. So I'm feeling grateful the fact that we were able to maintain it. But you have less flexibility to get up and go whenever you want. I want to move tomorrow. Every day I think about that. I'm like, I don't want to be here no more. Especially when I feel that winter time about to approach. I'm like, ooh, run. Another thing that we want to talk about as far as our questions that we have is home ownership still the best path to wealth in Black families? That's oh man, that's a loaded question. You know why it's a loaded question? What I want today, my kids may not want. That is what it is. So you have to look at that. Like, is home ownership still the best path to wealth? You have other things that we could delve in. And I know we talked about it in economic thing, in the economy discussion. We talked about getting our stocks and, investing in Bitcoin, which is down right now. There's certain things that you can do to have other ways of wealth in Black America. You could start your own Black business, your own family business. You could do so many different things. I was talking about somebody owning a laundromat or a grocery store. And I'm like, you just don't see it as often. I would love to open up an organic health food store to start, but I have so many ideas that run through this brain, and I'm like, I start looking at the finances of what it would take, and I'm like, oh, that kettle, because I don't want to order things in bulk through, wholesale distributors that may be unhealthy. I want to go for health, and I want to make sure that we're living in communities that we're thriving off of that, and having farms that we're buying from, opposed to grocery stores and big pharma and things like that. Are home prices simply too high for average salaries? That's a really important piece, because That's where you know you qualify for a home and how much they give you for your mortgage. I qualify for a $450,000 home. That means I have a great salary. But if you're making $50,000 to $60,000 a year, you may not want to qualify for a $450,000 mortgage. That doesn't mean a bank wouldn't give it to you, because they'll give it to you and watch you struggle. Like, you know what I mean? Like, that's the difference. And the interest rate will be high on it because they know that you're purchasing this at a lower chance of, actually being able to keep it and be stable. So yeah, our home price is simply too high for the average salaries. Please keep that in mind when you're doing your finances. Look at all of the salary requirements of everyone in your household, not just yourself, because any else income helps. So like, I don't just put my mortgage and my salary down. I put my kids' mortgage and salary because it's an investment. This is an investment. If I leave today and I walk out the door, I want them to be able to say my name's on that mortgage and that deed too. So yeah, there you are. That's that lineage that I was talking about building. And then, should Black families prioritize home ownership over other investments? It's a discussion. It's completely up to you if you want to invest in that or not. You have other things, and we talked about that. If you didn't watch my previous segment, go turn to it. You'll see. I'll talk about the finances and economy. So all of that stuff, we have a lot of important questions. Is renting really throwing money away? Which I felt like I was throwing my money away. I felt like I was walking away at the end of the day. I would buy things for the property to better improve it. And my landlord at that time, he knew that about me. My previous mate was also a contractor, so he a construction guy. So he would make some improvements because he got the list, the mommy list, the wife list, and he would do the things and the improvements just to appease me. But then when we're leaving, he's like, I should take all this down. I'm like, I agree. We should take this down. Knock this wall down. Let it be, exact to the conditions that we purchased it. Because then, of course, someone else is benefiting from what we made improvements to. And then, are property taxes making home ownership unaffordable? In some instances, yes. If you live in one of those high affordable cities, or one of the places that people want to attain homes in, you'll see those taxes for luxury apartments and housing is much more higher in interest rates as well as taxes. And you want to stay away from those areas for that reason. So another thing you want to like basically take in consideration: if a hardworking Black family has a job, decent salary, decent credit, and a desire to own a home, but still can't afford one, does that mean that family isn't financially responsible? Or does it mean that American housing market has become unaffordable? So that's really a great question, because it may not be us. It may be the economy. It may be the housing market has become unaffordable. And not only that, if programs exist that can provide $15,000 to $30,000 upward into getting into a house, why aren't more families using them? Why is this not publicized? Why are we not known about these programs? And then the important distinction that really, really takes effect generally isn't just a universal discussion for free FHA loan. Whew. I went through a lot. That was a lot to discuss. So can the average Black family still afford a home? It's up to you to decide. So take into account your finances, your income, have a discussion with your family. Do you want to invest in a property? Do you want to put your investment somewhere else? Take into consideration of what the pros and cons for renting versus ownership is. We covered a lot of material and I'm exhausted. I can't even begin to tell you. But taking everything into consideration is not simply the question of can the average Black family still afford a home. It's based on your wages, home prices, interest rates, taxes, insurance, student debt, your lack of inherited wealth, and making a home ownership a reality or not a reality. So do your homework, do your research, and then go invest accordingly. Go invest accordingly. Yeah, I feel like I covered a lot of material. Look in the comments for all the programs. I would love to know your thoughts on the segment. I would love to hear what your feedback is. Is this helpful to you? Is it not helpful? I think it's helpful. I hope it's helpful to you. I'm going to list a couple of other programs that I know that is in our local cities and states surrounding us in New Jersey, PA, and New York. just so you have it to your fingertips, because you need to know. If I know, now you know. So there you are. Thank you so much for joining the Grown Up Group podcast. I hope you guys like the material, and have a great one. Like, share, and subscribe.